like simply just like people in the throes of passion, like man. I think it's just coming from like my experiences at the library growing up, where I would like see those books and I'd be like, oh, it's like not for me as like a 10-year-old.
You'll just be stuck, trapped, something. Your anxiety will just be triggered. Yeah.
I'm just a contrarian, and I just feel like whenever I read those types of books, or like when I see them, I'm like, no, like I don't need your help. The narrator just like started like doing a fake Indian accent, and, like, and I was like, what?
Hey everyone, welcome to Persimmons and Paperbacks, and today we'll be doing a Reading Our Fears video, and yeah, let's get to it.
Hello everyone. So today is April 1st. It's a Saturday, and we are going to try and do something new this month. So instead of kind of having like a TBR and stuff, we're just going to talk about some of our like general fears in reading and things that we've just been kind of wanting to challenge ourselves to read but really haven't done so, and I think we're just going to intentionally try and read books in those categories this month. So yeah, we're just going to like share those now. The first fear I think we both had maybe was like long books. So I think like for me, like I don't know, I feel like epic fantasy is pretty easy for me to get into, and I'll really enjoy it, and I like prefer when it's really long. I tried reading Dune like 3 times, so I don't know about that actually. But yeah, I think like 500 plus page books for me like are something that I really struggle to read. So I will try and do that this month.
Yeah. So I also had long books. Like specifically for me, it doesn't even matter like what genre it is. It's just like if it's longer than 350 pages, I just like have a mental block where I'm like, like this will take too long. Like I'll just like read this later.
Yeah.
But I also think another one we both had was classics. Like
yeah.
I don't know. There's just something about like maybe it's just because like you read classics in school and stuff, and it's just like kind of conditioned out of you to like read them like on your own time. But I get like really stressed about reading them and like about understanding them sometimes. And
me too. Yeah. Also, I feel like you don't really DNF books also.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like with the length thing, it's like hard because you'll just be stuck, trapped, suffocating.
Yeah.
Your anxiety will just be triggered. I think for me like classics or older books is definitely like something. But yeah, I'm like reading Wuthering Heights still right now and enjoying that. But definitely hard to get into the language, and like it has to have a lot of like plot and main character draws for me to like really like it, I think. But yeah, I've been wanting to read more like Tolstoy, so we'll see if that happens this month. And then the next thing I had is like academic texts. So yeah, like ones that are published usually by like universities. I think in college, like being forced to read them was nice. I'm not really forced to anymore, so I don't do it as much. And I think just the way that they're written is clearly like more informational, I would say, than like perhaps like manufactured for like the average person to read. So definitely like the barrier to entry I feel like is kind of high in terms of like the average person reading it in terms of like vocabulary and stuff. I had like a bunch of Haymarket books, which is like a socialist publisher in Chicago. And I went to one of their like book sales and also just bought some books in college from them. So like I have like more topic specific books from them, like about like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, things like that. So I would like to like read more of those.
Yeah. Oh, I think my next one is kind of related, but I think it's like very like drilled in and specific. But I was like kind of, I don't know, I think because we volunteer at Open Books, I'll like often see a lot of like critique or like academic texts in like art, design, like philosophy, literature and stuff like this. And I feel like I'm just kind of like scared of like reading like academic texts or critique about just like art in general, whether it's like music, design, whatever. So I would like to get into reading that.
Yeah. My next one is like, I don't know if you had this on yours, but like poorly reviewed or not really popular books. So books that maybe like are like less than a 4-star. I do like, because I'm on BookTube and like Book Talk and stuff, I feel like, and Goodreads and stuff, like I see things all the time, so I kind of like, if I'm in a bookstore, I usually already kind of know what I would like to pick up. So I think getting over that hurdle and discovering and kind of going into it like more objectively and just determining for myself whether it's good would be nice.
Okay, the next one for me is self-help or like kind of like recommendations on how you should live your life books. I don't know, I feel like I'm just in general I'm just a contrarian. And I just feel like whenever I read those types of books or like when I see them, I'm like, no, like I don't need your help. And I feel like I don't, but also like I feel like a lot of people get a lot of value out of them, so I'm like, like maybe I should just like bite the bullet and like see what it's about and see if like, you know, even if I don't like the whole book, if I can get something that I do like from it. Yeah.
I think I feel similarly about like TED Talks or something like that. I really don't like them. Okay. The next one for me, which, okay, I'm afraid of this one's, but I don't really want to read it, but like horror books,
Yeah.
I'm like genuinely just afraid. So like I'm afraid of the material, and already experiencing poor sleep, so I'm probably just gonna like skip that one for my own insanity. And then the last one is really specific, but it's like Hanya Yanagihara's books. I have been meaning to read A Little Life for a really long time. My like old roommate in college, junior year, she really liked it, and she'd be reading it like every day though because the book is so long. And I like in Thailand this summer I picked up To Paradise, which kind of gives me like pachinko vibes, where it's like 3 generations and like spans like the U.S. and like Manhattan, I think. But I want to read one of their books because I've heard they're like, the main problem is that I've heard A Little Life is like devastating.
Yeah.
Like will literally sink you into like the deepest, darkest depression.
As soon as you said A Little Life, I was like, bro, not that.
This is Annie editing 6 months later in October, and I can say that I confidently haven't recovered from that book, but also would still say it was one of the best books I've read this year, so take that as you will.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm like ready like mentally for that, but yeah, that is a fear.
Yeah. Okay, I think my last fear is books that have a like raunchy cover, like simply just like people in the throes of passion, like a shirtless man. I'm like, I think it's just coming from like my experiences as at the library growing up, where I would like see those books and I'd be like, oh, it's like not for me as like a 10-year-old. And I think I like still I'm kind of like, oh, it's like
someone's
not
gonna
for
like
me.
find you out.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You slut. Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like honestly, like a lot of really good romances that people have like recommended on like Book Talk and BookTube and stuff, like have those covers, and so I feel like I'm just simply missing out. So I would like to read those.
I wanna show you this book that I that I showed Elly. But yeah, it's like a romance about a man in Durian. I feel like goofy, like low quality book covers in general.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of those like book covers are like super like Fabio, busty white woman, with blonde brunette hair. Yeah. And I feel like they were just not super like enticing.
Yeah.
I was never like, oh, they're so hot. Like I need a big instantly. Yeah. But
no, same.
Those are our fears. So stay tuned to see if we actually
face the fears.
Yeah, and how that goes. Yeah, or if we like just run away from them. Yeah.
Hello. Hi. So it is currently May 21st. So we are clowns. We said we would film a update by the end of April, I think, but here we are.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Everything's fine.
just much warmer and got a new haircut, and everything else is the same though. So yeah, yeah. So we did end up reading some of our fears. So. Yeah, do you want to start, Elly, by talking about that one?
Okay, so update is that I'm not completely done, but I do think that I made a lot of headway on it, more than I thought. For the long book fear, I read Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell, which was an unending task. Like, I was reading that shit every time I was taking the train, and I still took forever to finish it. But yeah, I do think it's maybe a little bit overhyped. Like, I had a lot of like really like big expectations going into it, because everyone just loved it so much, and in the end I thought it was just like really mid. But so that one's finished, which I'm really happy about. For the self-help and like get your life together type books, I read Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. There were some things I really liked about it, but in general I just really didn't like it, and I think that my self-help book fear was just like shown to me, because like one of the main things I don't like about those types of books is that a lot of the times if they're at all spiritual, they'll be like, like here's this thing in like Hinduism, or like here's this thing in like Buddhism, and like it's literally just like a white author who like grew up their whole life in California, and they're like, I'm an expert, which I think is like, I think that's the thing that got me the most about that book, and it's like what I expected. So I'm a little bit sad that one didn't turn out, but it was kind of what I was expecting.
Yeah. Should I share two and then
yeah
back and forth? Okay. All right. So my first two, the first one I had was classics, so like older books. Okay, so I kind of fell off from my obsession with Wuthering Heights and completely stopped reading it after like 2 pages. So I need to get back on it. It's waiting for me actually. And I also have not started Crime and Punishment, which I've been trying to start reading. However, I did read one classic. It was more of a modern classic though, because it was like published in 1965, but it was called Stoner by John Williams. And it's a book about a like Midwestern boy / man who basically grows up in like a farming family, and at the time, like with the land grant universities in the US and how they worked, like there ends up being a school near him. So his family's like, oh, like why not go to the school so that you can study agriculture and like help with our farm, like learn some new techniques. However, eventually he basically like falls in love with English literature and like becomes more of like an academic. And yeah, there's like a ton of different things related to like the fact that he kind of has like ends up marrying someone for like from a different class, and like the sort of dynamics that exist there. And it was definitely like really depressing. Like I think going into it, like my friend was like, oh, this is supposed to be the most depressing book ever. And I was like, okay, like we can read it. But I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it like a 4 out of 5 stars. And then for horror, I listened to a book. It was also a book I wanted to read for API month, so it was called Leave the World Behind by Rumaan, and this is like a really popular book. It's being made into a Netflix movie this year that has like Mahershala Ali and like yeah, just like it's supposed to be like very yeah, like highly regarded, but basically it's about like 2 families, and one of them is like they're like I think like 30-year-old like yuppie type white couple who has 2 kids. They end up going to this like getaway weekend in a really rural area, and they're in an Airbnb, and it's rented by this other couple who's like an older black couple. And basically what happens is like there's like sudden blackout and on the East Coast, and then the older couple is like escaping New York City, so they come back to their like house where they like you know, like wanted to like find refuge from the like power outage and everything. And then it's kind of like the tensions of like race and like I don't know, like trust and sort of like very like, yeah, thriller, sort of slow creeping kind of build. I think that's confirmed that I don't really like horror, because I was just like not having the best time ever. I was like really scared. I think classics, like I think I was afraid of them, but I know I can enjoy them a lot. But I think for horror, I think I don't really enjoy it a lot. So I think I don't know, like I guess maybe also because I listened to it as an audiobook, it literally felt like they were creeping in my ear, and it was like it was just that feeling where I was like in my room at night. And like at like 1 a.m. and I was like, oh god, just like what is coming? And this wasn't even like horror. It was more like a thriller, but I don't know, it was intriguing. I think I gave it like a 3 stars out of 5. So yeah, it was okay.
For me, we're moving on to the ones that I'm in progress. So for classics, I just started Persuasion by Jane Austen, which I found on Thrift, but it's just on my physical TBR. So it's just getting rid of my physical TBR and also trying to accomplish something with this challenge. So really excited to read it. I've heard good things. And then for my raunchy cover type book, I chose a sapphic historical romance called The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite, which I was speeding through at one point, but then like, man, I was like reading the audiobook and the narrator just like started like doing a fake Indian accent for like the help, and I was like, what? And I just like had to put it away. I was like,
wait, what? That's wild.
That's so bad. And also like their actual relationship, I'm like, I'm not feeling the chemistry really. Like, yeah, you're just like having sex, but also like when you're not, I literally don't see how you guys are like a couple like that.
That's
so, but I do think it's like interesting. I feel like I'm trying to like read more sapphic romances, so yeah. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I'm like 4/5 of the way through, so next update for sure I'll have it. And then I just haven't even started on like the academic or like art critique book. What about you?
Okay, so another one of my fears was a book that is not popular or poorly reviewed. So for our like book club that we run, we chose to read Ninth Building by Jingzhi, and it was on the like International Booker long list?
Yeah.
Question mark? Yeah. So yeah, it was published a while ago. I don't know why it was on the long list this year. Maybe it was like the translation was pretty recent. But yeah, it was translated from Chinese to English. And yeah, it has 109 ratings, 3.66 stars on Goodreads, which I think is pretty low. Like I typically wouldn't read something that low, but also like, I don't know, I guess we cheated in the sense that it was critically acclaimed by some kind of larger entity. But yeah, it's a collection of vignettes about Zhou Jingzhi, like the author's life growing up during the Cultural Revolution. And basically like Ninth Building refers to the like intellectuals who were after the Communist Revolution, they were like brought into like the Ninth Building, and basically like, yeah, they were seen as like they needed re-education, so they were brought to the like countryside together to do like physical labor and re-education.
Wasn't it like their name was literally like the stinking old nine? Or something really weird. Like
Yeah.
it was just it was scary.
Yeah, the book was really depressing. Like as you would expect, it was
Yeah.
super depressing. Like
I had to pause several times. I was like, I'm gonna close this book for a
I
minute.
didn't understand
Yeah.
what I was reading honestly a lot, but I think in the end when we discussed it, it was like a deeper appreciation for the fact that it existed and that he had ironically basically collected all these diary entries, even though he was like supposed to not be an intellectual and try and like reform, but he was literally just writing and trying to write all the time. But yeah, it was interesting. It had a couple interesting essays about like passion and like violin and kind of like how someone say from China might view like more of a Western sort of influence of music, for example, and how kind of globalization impacts like different cultures, art, and like I think it had a really interesting critique on that, and I think there was like a nuanced conversation. There were a lot of different conversations happening, I feel like, but I don't know, like I think the translation was a little rough, I'm not gonna lie, and
You're just coming for Jeremy Tang immediately.
yeah, sorry Jeremy Tiang, you were really great for doing this in the first place, because I feel like it was probably not, I don't know, I'm confused as to how the book was allowed to be published, honestly, but also I'm guessing it was watered down a little bit in terms of the content, because I think it's been published in China, which most like Cultural Revolution media and like photos, everything is kind of just blocked from like, there's like it's censored in general. So I think the fact that this exists is really amazing, and being able to read it like firsthand accounts is obviously really awesome, and like the translation and stuff was also like super valuable. But I don't know, I think I still tend to gravitate towards things that are like that I hear from someone that I like really like, or like a friend or something, like recommendations. And I think knowing what I know about what I like, I might not have gravitated towards this book, but I think it was like a good read, and I would like to read more translated texts. And we were considering doing like the Reading Across the World challenge of like maybe reading a book from each country in like Asia, for example, to start. So I think it'd be cool to do that and see like what sort of literature is out there that we can obviously read in English. Okay, I'll speed it up. So next was long books. So like I think I said like 500 plus pages or something like that. I read A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I was planning on reading To Paradise, which is her other book, but I picked this one up because I saw that it was about like 4 classmates like post-college, and they go to like a small liberal arts school in Massachusetts. They end up in New York, and it's kind of about their relationship, their collective relationship, but also their individual relationships. And I was like, I have a friend group kind of before people from college, so I was like, this is sort of relatable. There's a lot of dynamics going on. It's really hard to maintain contact and maintain friendship. So I wanted to pick it up. And it like literally, I read it for like 3 days straight without pausing, just like literally did nothing else.
You were in tears.
I was
unwell.
I was like, I cried like 4 times within 24 hours. I hadn't cried for like a month and a half. So it was just like emotionally really disturbing, but like in a good way, I would say. Like I think it was cathartic, and there's a lot of themes of like self-harm. And there's like a character named Jude who like definitely deals with a lot of really difficult like trauma, and that's like a focal point. Like they are the main person in the story that the story revolves around, but it definitely talks a lot about like friendship. And I think like 2 of the characters are Black and 2 are white, and like they're all like male characters, but they're all very like, not all really nuanced, but like I think they were very interesting to read about, and like the sort of there were just so many complex characters and relationships, and I think that's like the beauty of long books, because they're able to explore so much. Like this book spanned decades, right? It spanned so many different themes and did like I think justice to a lot of those. So at the end, I wasn't like, oh, I feel like these certain aspects were like unresolved or something like that. So I would highly recommend that book. Definitely a new favorite. But I would say it's like really physically immobilizing. So I would recommend like just be prepared. And it's like 720 pages, so it's pretty long. So I'd recommend it. The writing is like really beautiful as well. And then the last one that I had was academic texts. So I was planning on reading this Haymarket book I have about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but I did not get to it. However, I started reading a book about debt. Why am I forgetting the author's name? That's awkward. But it's really good so far. I'm like maybe a few chapters in. David Graeber, So like the author is like was one of the leaders of like the Occupy Wall Street movement, I believe, and he also was like an academic exile due to like a lot of his associations with like leftist organizations. But it's a really, really comprehensive, really great look into like debt and how we see it as like a moral dilemma, and yeah, how like it is like inherently quite violent. So it's like really interesting. But yeah, I did not get through that fear, but that fear is like still a huge looming fear.
Yeah. Because I think, like, in some senses, like, I don't know, like, for me, I'm like, if it's a book that's, like, just nonfiction, like, Evicted by, like, Matthew Desmond, I feel like it's still okay for me. But when it's, like, something that's, like, structuralism in literature or something like that, I'm like, I can't get through this. Like, it'll take me forever.
Yeah, like, my roommate and I read Orientalism together, and that took, like, so long. And I think it was a worthwhile read, but sometimes it does feel like, why couldn't I just... Like, I would prefer to just be in a class where the professor has read all these things and they're just like, here you go, like, I'll just teach you. And then I'm like, what is going on? And they, like, answer all my questions. But obviously, now that we're not in school anymore, like, the pursuit of knowledge requires so much more effort to be in.
So true.
But it's a worthwhile pursuit, I would say. So, yes.
Okay. Hello.
The date is August 8th.
It's been a while since we filmed our first video for the series.
Yeah, just 4 months. But we're back. We have some bangs, and we did complete some of our fears.
New update. For classics, I read Persuasion by Jane Austen. Best book. Yeah. And for academic, I tried reading Phonology as Human Behavior by Yeshai Tobin, but oh my gosh, I could not get through it for the life of me. And I was like, we've already put off this video for too long, so it is not a fear that has been conquered yet. Yeah. However, hopefully I will conquer it by the end of the year.
Hello, this is Elly, realizing that I never wrapped up the raunchy cover book fear, but I did end up finishing that book. Didn't rate it very high, but I don't know, I feel like I've come around on this one, and I don't really think it's because of the raunchy cover. I just feel like maybe that book wasn't for me, and I found the characters kind of annoying. But yeah, I don't know, I think maybe I'm over this book fear, but not because of this book, if that makes sense. Okay, bye.
I also was supposed to read an academic text, but I did make some progress on, like, debt, and I still need to read this Haymarket book that I have about Israeli and Palestine, or, like, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but yeah, I will be getting to that. Yeah, overall, I don't know, I'm glad we did it. I was telling Elly that I wish that I had gone a little harder in terms of getting outside of my comfort zone, but I don't know, I think it kind of confirmed that I know my taste. Like, would I read another poorly reviewed book? I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's enough pulling me to be like, hey, I'm gonna like try and do this for the sake of doing it. I think similarly with horror, I don't really know if I enjoy horror still. So I think I'm like more than willing to give it a shot if like someone really recommends it to me, or yeah, like I hear a lot about a certain book, but other than that, I feel like I know my taste. And it's kind of confirmed a lot of those things,
Yeah. No, I feel kind of the same way. Like, I think the books that I liked, I knew I was gonna like, and like the books that I didn't like, I was like, I don't know, I don't think that I was coming into it like, oh my god, I'm gonna hate this book.
Yeah.
But I feel like I wasn't surprised at the end where I was like, oh, this is what I didn't like about the book. So yeah, I don't know. Would love to do a challenge like this again in the future though. I feel like it's fun to kind of like push yourself a little bit, even if you're like, that was actually a little bit painful reading this.
Yeah,
still fun.
Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna get to reading an academic text hopefully soon.
That'll be the next challenge.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, we're gonna try and do more challenges. So like, please let us know in the comments if you have any challenge suggestions. But yeah, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
This video took 8 months to make for various reasons. I accidentally waterboarded my computer, so had to get a new one. But please look forward to more content, and thanks so much for watching.